So welcome. Just wanted to say before we get into the interview, I just wanted to say thanks everybody for coming on tonight and also celebrating women and basically International Women's Day, which was 2 days ago, but we're doing it. We're doing it like women. We're doing it on a different day because we can. Anyways, Lynda, thanks very much for coming on and joining us tonight. I wanted to actually introduce Lynda a little bit. Lynda competed in the Pan American Games in 2003, 2015. She also competed in the Commonwealth Games in 2010 as well as 2014. She is an Olympian. She was there in 2016 and she will be there again in 2021. Yay! And she's actually represented Canada at multiple world championships, world cups, as well as the Continental championships. And she's done this for over 20 years. In her spare time, I guess, or in her real time, she actually resides in Calgary, Alberta. And she has a very supportive husband, she says, as well as three wonderful, beautiful little children. And besides being an Olympian and a mother and a wife, she's also a civil engineer. So she is somebody that is amazing. So thank you again for coming on tonight, Lynda, and telling us all about yourself.
Thank you.
Can you tell us actually how you got into sports? Because it's a really, really interesting story. Your family is quite well known in the shooting community.
Yeah, so I've joked that the sports world and being an Olympian is all in the family. My dad was a 3-time Olympian. My sister was an Olympian in 2012, and I actually competed against her for that Olympic spot, and she won out. It's been a wild ride for sure. It's honestly, it all started. My dad asked my sister and I to help him rearrange the basement like one afternoon. And I mean, he was hearing it all from me saying like, this is a terrible way to lay out the basement. We're cutting off the access. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And he said nothing. He just said, okay, move this here and put this here and adjust this here. And by the time we were done, we had this like air pistol range in the basement. And then he's just like, well, now that we've built it, do you guys want to give it a try? And we're like, we just spent like how many hours? Sure, of course. So yeah, like that's it. I mean, like the rest is probably history, but that's pretty much how it all started. Is my dad just kind of asked, hey, do you want to try? And we've been there ever since.
Okay. Do you want to tell us about your dad himself? He's an Olympian. And how many times has he been there? And also your sister. Actually, you said that already, haven't you? That
Yeah.
he is 3 times.
Yeah. So my dad was a 3-time Olympian. I think when I started shooting, I didn't even really know he was Olympian. He'd actually kind of more retired from sport by the time
Okay.
I came along. I mean, he was still competing a little bit when I was very young, but I don't really remember that. I mean, he'd still go to the shooting range and kind of hang out, but he didn't really get back into the sport until he started coaching when my sister and I started. And then he got into coaching and he raised up in coaching and he was getting his international coaching license. He was the national coach of the Canadian pistol team, actually, when he passed away in 2005. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was a very cool thing that I got to kind of travel with my sister and my dad and got to go and compete in such an amazing sport.
Wow. So essentially he is your mentor. Somebody who else actually is who else inspires you who else is somebody that either inspires you or has been a mentor along the way?
I think that there's been lots of people who have been mentors. I mean, my sister for sure. She just always seemed to have a knack for being such a great shooter. I always felt like I had to work a whole lot harder for it than she ever did. But at the same time, like all my teammates, I mean, I'm looking at one of them like, hello, Lee, I see you there. I mean, Susan Natras, like what an amazing role model that she has been throughout the years. I mean, Cynthia Meyer, and I mean, the amazing amount of people who have been in and out of sports have been amazing role models. I mean, I mean, even like my mom as well. I mean, my mom's not in the sport. She doesn't really know anything about shooting sports other than, like other than she's hung out at probably every shooting range across Canada at some point in her marriage. But there's always been such great support and encouragement and even rivalry and like helping to pull people up. And I had a teammate recently say, well, you have to train with people who are doing what you want to be doing so that you can see it happening and then and then you start doing what you want to be happening, and then you believe for sure that you can absolutely do it.
Yeah.
And I think we've been very lucky that we've been surrounded with people who are already doing it. So therefore, we can see it happening, and we want to do, and we want to go, and we believe that we can. So
Yeah,
it's been
that's
pretty great.
fantastic advice as well. Yeah. Um, do you have any memories or very memorable things that have happened that have just in either any of the games like the Worlds or anything? What's your most memorable piece from that, do you think?
My most memorable was getting to stand on the Commonwealth podium with my sister in 2010. That was probably one of my most cherished moments. That was actually the first time in our competitive careers that we got to be on a team together
Wow.
for like any sort of like international kind of competition, and it was amazing. And I mean, we got the bronze medal, and that was fine. But I mean, when we go back and look at it, we'd actually tied for the gold, and we got the bronze on the count back. It was the most bizarre thing that ever happened. I mean, how often does a tie happen like that? So
Hmm.
um, that was definitely one of my more memorable experiences. And probably the other one would be at the Pan American Games in 2015, competing on home soil.
Yeah.
Unreal. Like I can't even really capture it entirely. And I was struggling in the finals for air pistol, and I heard one of my teammates' voice above all of the other chaos that was happening, that literally just said, "You're still good, Canada. Keep going." And I was just like, I'm like, okay, well, I can't see the scoreboards. I don't know what's happening, so I'm just gonna pick up and do my next shot and just not worry about whatever happened. And there we go. I mean, I went on to gold medal. So
Perfect. That's wonderful. Um, now, I do have a question. Have you had any heartbreaking moments or really disappointing moments along the way? And if you had, how did you actually deal with it so that you could continue on?
heartbreaking moments. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's probably been more that I've forgotten now than I can count.
Hmm.
Um, so probably a heartbreaking moment for me would have been actually in 2003. I won the bronze medal at the Pan American Games. The silver medal came with a quota spot to go to the 2004 Olympics. I lost that by 0.7 of a point.
Wow.
Um, Heartbreaking, heart wrenching, really tough. And at the time, I had a coach actually tell me, as you know, I had tears running down my face, and I was just devastated. And he looked at me and he just said, "Go clean yourself up, come back with a smile on your face. I don't care if it's fake. Put a smile on before you approach any sort of media." He's like, "You are proud." He's like, you made Canada proud. You're coming home with hardware. Plaster a fake smile on if you need to, and keep it there until we're done." And quite honestly, like by the end of the day, like after kind of like the medal ceremonies and everything, and then my dad was actually my coach during those games.
Okay.
And what a treasure. And then he literally carted me around the Pan American village to all of the people, like all of the background people, the people who had helped hem my pants, and the people who had, like in the medical areas who, like had helped us all feel better. And like the physiotherapist, he literally paraded me around being like, "Look, we all helped. Everybody she's got a medal. Like, this is amazing." And I think by the end of the day, although I'd missed kind of the goal that I was looking for,
Yep.
like it's just that extra support, that love, that attention, like I was really proud of myself at kind of like afterwards, disappointed and heartbroken, but at the same time, it's like there was still definitely a future forward for that.
Right.
Um, I mean, and then I would say like there's been loads of moments like that. I would say even coming home from the Olympics in 2016, I mean, I was heartbroken. I didn't perform the way I wanted to. It took me, I'm going to say, probably a good 3 or 4 months to just come to terms with the performance that I had, which realistically was a good performance. It was reasonable. It was how I'd been performing all year, but I had hoped for more, and I wanted to perform better than I had all year. And it wasn't until I kind of came home and could reflect and kind of sit and settle and soak on it that, I mean, sports isn't all of who we are. It's a part of who we are. It doesn't define us. It helps to lift us up, and we meet such amazing people, and we get to have such a great experience, and we get to talk to such amazing people throughout all of it. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely been the heartbreaking moments, but I think it's that perspective and stepping back and just saying, well, does this change who I am? Does this change that I'm getting up and I'm still going to work tomorrow? Does it do my kids care if I've come home with a medal or not? Sometimes they do. They actually like to wear the medals that I bring home,
Oh,
which is pretty cute. But at the end of the day, I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I win, if it doesn't matter if I lose. I am still the same person regardless, and I get to still participate in such an amazing sport that I can still go back, win or lose, and I can still go back and take heart and cherish every moment that I get to spend and every bullet that I get to put down the range.
so, um, it's great. It's going back on it, you were talking about being able to spend that time with your father, and him coaching you, and then celebrating afterwards. That's what actually it's all about as well. Um, just celebrating with your family and that, and it sounded great that you were able to celebrate with your father while he was there too.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your training regime? You did talk about it a little bit, but you talked about specifically having to train. But how do you train, and how are you training for the upcoming games that are coming up this year?
I'm probably training a little bit different than I did 4 years ago.
Mhm.
I'm taking what I learned 4 years ago and trying to be trained smarter, um, and not necessarily harder per se, but just train in a way that is the most effective for the time that I have. I mean, right now I have 3 kids. I'm lucky that I'm only working part-time right now, and that's kind of contingent on the Olympics as well. And and being able to have the time to spend with my kids and hang out with them. So I have very set times during the day where I have someone else watching my kids, because shooting is not a sport that you can just have your kids hanging around your ankles at. It's not like you can take them running in a stroller. It's not like you can take them for a walk, or go play volleyball or soccer. Like, it's a pretty defined thing where safety is paramount. So I always have to make sure that there's someone watching my kids. My husband does work full time, and he helps out as amazing and best he can within those time constraints. And so I have set times that I work. I work out. I work out in the mornings before my kids get up, and I train portions in the afternoon where I have different um, the different training exercises of where my focus is and like what I'm working on and what I want to notice about what I'm shooting and about my technique and my process.
Mhm.
And then there's also times where I'm like, I'm going to be doing loads and loads of dry fire right now, as well. And I do lots of dry fire again after my kids are in bed. So I'm like, there's a lots before and after they're in bed, and I kind of go through and do that the best that I can, and I get into the range as often as I can, which sometimes is a bit challenging, but it's again, I mean, I can go to the range when my kids are mostly in bed or when I've got someone watching them during the day. So mostly I'm focusing on my process and perfecting all of the techniques that go into it,
Okay.
and yeah, going from there.
Okay. What about the mental piece? What are you doing to actually prepare for it mentally? Because and that's a huge part of the game as well. How do you actually prepare for going into the competition and getting over those nerves as well?
Um, at this point, with the insanity over the last year, um, the I think the Olympics are going to feel really easy in comparison to everything we've gone through in the last year. Honestly, um, I mean, that might sound a little bit crazy, but the amount of resilience that I'm going to say, like, but everybody has had to have and everybody's had to build over this time. The adaptability. I'm normally kind of a person who writes my training plan and like my yearly plan, and it's written in stone.
Yeah.
And um, pardon the term, but I mean, this year it's pretty much felt like I've been pissing in the snow for a training plan. It's been, it's almost like, okay, well, I've got a plan. Nope, there's something has changed. Forget that. Like, we'll start again and we'll do something else. So the adaptability and the resilience is almost coming with it as I kind of go through that. And there's definitely been up times where I'm doing really well, and there's definitely been down times where I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm not coping well, and that's when I call my sports psychologist, and they're glorious. I actually have 2 of them at the moment,
Okay.
And they have different strengths, and they help me with different things, and having someone to talk to, just kind of being like, someone please understand where I'm coming from, and that like I'm not going crazy, and that everybody is struggling and everything's a little bit different. And then going into that performance pieces of understanding where I am, understanding my performance, and understanding what I'm capable of, and removing the expectations of the capability, and just really going down into the performance and the process and just focusing on what I can control and letting go of the things that I can't.
Okay. What about tips for new competitive shooters? What if somebody's looking to get into competitive shooting or is interested in um, trying out for the Olympics? What tips can you actually give them?
Um, I would say that's almost a tough one. I mean, just try it out. Like pick up a gun, give it a try. I mean, the oddly enough, of all the people that I've ever taken shooting, everybody has a very specific preference of which gun they like. Oddly enough, and no one knows what it is until you pick it up. It's almost like trying on a pair of shoes. You try
Yeah.
on a couple pairs of shoes, and you're like, "Ooh, this is the one for me." And some people love the revolver, and some people love a shotgun, and some people love like the bolt action rifle. Like I can't even predict what people have an affinity for and where their passions lie and what, like feels right to them. But
Mhm.
everybody seems to have that that gun that feels right and that works. And what I think once you have that, then like that can help to guide you into what sport you want to go into and what discipline you would want to specialize in, and where does your passion lie? Like what makes you excited and makes you want to do more?
Yeah. What about Canadians supporting our athletes? What would you think, or sorry, like, how can they actually support the athletes that are going to be going out to the Olympics and also the Worlds and that as well? So, what can Canadians do to help support you and other athletes?
I think specifically when it comes to like the shooting sports, it's a bit tough. Canadian shooting sports always feel like it's almost like a politically incorrect sport,
Mm,
and that's always a bit of a challenge. And I think it's just being educating and being out there to be able to, educate that shooting sports are a really great sport. It's quite honestly the safest sport that's out there. Um, like it's the chance of getting an injury in a shooting sport is, you know almost nothing. I mean, you're more likely to throw your back out picking up all your equipment than you are to, like have an injury when you're on the range. So I think it's one of those things where it's education and understanding and an open-mindedness to say, hey, like what's going on and how could we help support you? Most Canadian shooters are self-funded. Like it's not like an athletic deal where someone's, like working for Adidas and they're getting to have a huge contract. I mean, we're doing it because we love it. We're doing it because we're passionate about it. And I think being able to share that passion with athletes would be really fantastic.
well, is there anything that you want to share with the ladies that are currently on the podcast that we're doing this evening, or they'll be looking at in the future? Anything about whether it's the shooting sports or just basically women getting involved into the shooting sports?
I think they would be fantastic for women to get involved. I mean, I'm also an equal opportunity. I think everybody should get involved, but definitely, women and like teenagers. Like what a great gift I had. Quite honestly, getting into shooting sports when I was, like a young kid, like just before my teens. The focus and the drive and the determination that it gave me. I mean, I was really uncoordinated as a kid. So when it came to other sports teams, I had some sports skills, but really not a whole lot. And having the opportunity to be in shooting sports was really amazing. It gave me focus, it gave me determination, and it showed me how to be, really in the moment of an activity, and that has been amazing throughout the rest of my life.